Past decade, warmest on record. NASA data shows. The decade, ending in 2009, was the warmest on record. New surface temperature figures released by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration show. The agency also found that 2009 was the second warmest year since 1880, when modern temperature measurement began. The warmest year was 2005. The other hottest recorded years have all occurred since 1998, NASA said. James E. Hansen, director of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, said that global temperatures varied because of changes in ocean heating and cooling cycles. When we average temperature over 5 or 10 years to minimize that variability, said Dr. Hansen, one of the world's leading climatologists, we find global warming is continuing unabated. Also, the planet Earth is a dynamic, living being in some kind of big way. It has climate control, and if it starts warming up or getting too warm, then naturally it would try to cool itself down. That would be its response or reaction, which could explain why parts of Europe and England and China and parts of the eastern United States have been so cold so far this year, or why Florida had such unusually low temperatures. A separate preliminary analysis from the National Climatic Data Center, a unit of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, found that 2009 tied with 2006 as the fifth warmest year on record, based on measurements taken on land and at sea. The Data Center report, published earlier this week, also cited the years 2000 to 2009 as the warmest decade ever measured. The new temperature figures provide evidence in the scientific discussion of global warming, but are not likely to be the last word on whether the planet's temperature is on a consistent upward path. Dr. Hansen, who has been an outspoken figure in the climate debate for years, has often been attacked by skeptics of global warming. The question of whether the planet is heating and how quickly was at the heart of the so-called Climate Gate controversy that arose last fall when hundreds of email messages from the Climate Study Unit at the University of East Anglia in England were released without authorization. Critics seized on the messages as evidence that, in their view, climate scientists were manipulating data. But climate scientists and political leaders affirmed what they called a broad-based consensus that the planet was growing warmer and on a consistent basis, although with measurable year-to-year variations. That could explain the Earth's reaction, why some winters are colder than others. The NASA data released showed an upward temperature trend of about 0.36 or 0.36 degrees Fahrenheit, 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade over the past 30 years, and still increasing. Average global temperatures have risen by approximately 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit, 0.8 degrees Celsius since 1880. And bear in mind, even though that doesn't sound like a huge increase, the Earth is a dynamic, balanced system. if one system gets knocked out of order, then another system could also be knocked out of order, because everything is connected. And that's the important number to keep in mind, said Gavin Schmidt, a climatologist at Goddard. The difference between the second and sixth warmest years is trivial, because the known uncertainty in the temperature measurement is larger than some of the differences between the warmest years. Policymakers at the United Nations Climate Change Summit Conference in Copenhagen last month agreed on a goal of trying to keep the rise in average global temperatures to 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, or 2 degrees Celsius, to try to forestall the worst effects of global warming. And of course, nobody knows exactly what all that global warming entails, because these are times like there's never been before. This is kind of like uncharted territory. Nobody knows exactly how the weather or the earth will react, what will be the response of. And there's no guarantee that there will be a climate change or United Nations climate change agreement, especially with the way the economies of the world are going. And again, these are more signs of the end times, transition days. There is a great transition going on. It's a process that's happening day by day all around the world.